Well, hey, everybody, we are live with some people from Float. You may not have heard much about Float on my podcast, but I've been using their app for a long time. And today I have Aaron Edwards and Alex Martin. Sorry, I just changed your name. Can I just rename
anything?
So Alex is the COO of Float. And Aaron, I'm sorry, I don't know your role, but you're married to the guy who came up with the idea, right?
My role is co-founder and chief community officer.
Awesome. And what Erin's particularly good at, guys, is getting people the information they need about Float and connecting people and finding new people. I've watched her be a natural networker on Float since I joined in. And I was like, hey, who's this Erin chick? Right? Not realizing where she was at. But today I wanted to bring you two on to talk about the importance of decentralized social networks, which is a lot of words for some of my listeners. My listeners tend not to be super techie, although some of them are. But when we look at what's happened over the last 5 years with Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and all of those things, last year, a lot of people got like the warning shot when Donald Trump was pulled off of social media and Parler was taken down, and they started going hyper on, hey, we got to find alternatives, but they went from one centralized system to another. So let's start out with something just very basic. What is Float, which you can find at float.app, and why is it decentralized rather than centralized? Like, why did you make that decision?
Well, actually, so a lot of people don't know, but Float is actually not decentralized in itself. We are working. Yes, correct. Yeah, we are working to decentralize as we go. Just because decentralized technology is actually not user-friendly technology, or not as user-friendly technology as one would hope. Yet. But Float is an uncensorable social media. And so ultimately, what we had found when we entered the social media space was there aren't a lot of principled social media companies out there. And I don't know if that's because they just, they started out principled and then as they went, they got corrupted, or they just started out with the idea of, oh, we're just going to data mine everybody and steal all their stuff. I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Let me see if I can put a do not disturb on, of course, as soon as we hop on live. But anyway, so like I had mentioned, we are not yet decentralized. However, Alex, do you want to talk about our efforts into that space?
Sure. For those of you who don't know what we mean by decentralized, if I may do a quick primer, you in a centralized system, basically all your interactions happen with a backend server. So if you post on Twitter, your data goes to Twitter, Twitter holds your data, then they send it back out to other people. So there's one location where all the data goes to and is all pulled from, right? And so that gives that one company the ability to decide who gets to go in, who gets to, what information comes out, what's filtered, what's allowed. And that's what they call a trusted third party. So I want to talk to Aaron through Twitter. I got to trust Twitter to let me talk to Aaron the way I want to talk to Aaron, right? The problem with that is you can easily censor stuff. You can make people disappear. You can make content disappear. You can change the narrative after the fact by pretending that this happened at this time when it didn't, or vice versa. So the idea of decentralization is that there is no trusted third party. A third party like Float eventually, and this is where we're moving to, will act like an identity server. So Float will say, oh, you're Alex. And that's it. And it'll say, oh, you're Aaron, and that's it. And then anything I send to Aaron eventually will go straight to Aaron and back and forth. So that Float, well, as a central location, doesn't actually have the ability to store or mine or delete content. So we're not there yet, but we're working that way. The trade-off is in a centralized system, you get speed and efficiency. You send data, you send it out, and you can just scale that central server up as big as you want to make it as quick as possible for the number of people you have. In a decentralized system, there's this negotiation of, okay, where are you? Where am I? How are we going to communicate? Where's the data going to get stored? So it takes longer. It's a little bit less user friendly. And so at Float, we're working toward meeting that balance between speed and efficiency. So you have a good experience. I click on a thing and the data comes right up. but also decentralization, so that we as Float aren't responsible for storing your information. We don't want any more information from you than we need to store. It's none of our business who you're talking to or what you're saying to them, you know, and anything that we don't have, we can't be asked to produce or delete, right? So that's the idea. Getting to that point is a process, though. We have had many discussions about that in terms of creating identity. That's probably the first one. So a system that can verify that I'm me and that you're you. And then the next one is what to do with files, what to do with data that's stored, videos particularly, which require sort of like real-time interaction. So that's something through like IPFS, the Interplanetary File System, maybe will be a decentralized storage system. And then the real-time interactions, you know, how do you do that? Do I connect directly to the other user? Do we have some sort of hub that relays stuff in real time with encryption? It's a complicated process, but the ultimate objective there is to get out of the middle, to provide services so you can connect with people on your phone when you're moving and your IP address changes, but not to be copying and storing and potentially having any kind of control or responsibility for what you do and say.
Right. And so
that was supposed to be brief. I'm sorry, I went a little long.
Oh, that wasn't long at all. What were you going to say, Erin?
I was going to say, and the thing that kind of makes Float different than the other social medias is that right from launch, we've had encrypted direct messages as well, just because we know that Facebook will literally read and transcribe your messenger calls and your messages back and forth. And, you know, we did not want that layer of trust with our users. We did not want anyone to think that we have any interest in reading your messages. Even if we wanted to, we can't because of the encrypted technology.
So then on the most basic level, you're a social network that thinks what I say to my friends is none of your business.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And in fact, if I say something mean or poopy pantsy to my friends, you don't care if they complain. In fact,
that's
they don't have
you
a way
guys.
to complain, right?
They do have a way to complain. However, we really won't get involved unless the speech is illegal, or you know,
like threatening murder would be illegal, right? Like an example of that.
Well, there's always going to be conflict between people. Even close friends conflict at times, and we don't want to be the arbiters of your conflicts.
Right.
It's not my job to be the policeman for what people say to each other. We do have to operate within a framework here in this country according to the laws of our nation and jurisdictions. So there's that. But other than that, you're adults. As far as I'm concerned, it's up to you to play nice or be mean or troll each other or figure out who you do and don't want to talk to and what you do and don't want to hear. It's none of my business.
Right. And just use that block button.
Or don't follow somebody to begin with.
Right.
There's that.
There is that. And that's the thing. So when I first started using Float, the reason I did it is that about 3 years ago, and I have a podcast about this, I realized how bad Facebook was. And I thought, well, I have these listeners to my audio podcast who like to interact with me on Facebook. And what we can do is tell Facebook to go screw and move over to a different social network. So I moved to MeWe because that was the first one I found that looked like it was not censoring speech. And, you know, I'm always conflicted about this issue because I come from a place of if you're a private corporation and you don't want people to say stuff, that's your choice. Well, then it's my choice not to be on your platform.
Sure.
And so I pushed hard. I think I had live streams twice a week or live chats on MeWe twice a week for half an hour at the crack of dawn when nobody normal in the tech world is awake, but I'm awake because I'm on a homestead. And after about 6 months of doing that, I got more traffic from MeWe than Facebook. And I tested it. I just stopped posting anything to Facebook to see what would happen. Well, then I saw Float come up, and it was what it looked like to me as an end user was an alternative to Twitter. Well, I used Twitter when Twitter first came to be because, yes, I am that old. And so I knew some things instinctively. So a lot of people get on a system like Float, set up their username and password and their profile, and then it's just like crickets. Because the cool thing about Float, and I love it, is if I want to see stuff, I follow people and I see stuff. And if I don't want to see stuff, I unfollow that. So a couple of times there's this one person who will post 20 links to 20 news articles in the same 2-minute period of time because that's what I don't know why they do that, but they do, which is really dumb on a social network because you get overwhelmed. And what you want to do is spread those out through the day. Well, that person did that 4 or 5 times. I'm like, unfollow. I don't need to see 20 posts about articles. Even if they're interesting, I don't want to see that. So I love that you get a real feed that's not shadow banning people you don't like, that facilitates interaction. And I think the cool thing is that I've seen going on in the last 6 months or so on Float is your user base has started to make a concerted effort to interact rather than just broadcast. You know what made that happen? Any ideas?
It's funny because I really chalk that up to, I think the Float team is very engaging. And so, we like to have conversations with people. And actually, Alex is really great at this. And honestly, it's just like the quality of users that we have. I think Jack Spirko really should be credited on helping users. We've seen him and a couple of other users create like tutorials from the bottom of their hearts, on how to use Float efficiently, and just really encouraging users to interconnect. I think that's
and as a team, we've made it a priority to encourage engagement between users, to create media from our point of view that tries to start conversations, to try to engage users with each other using through our user spotlights, through our Small Business Sunday posts, to introduce users to other users that may share their values that they may be interested in following. So it's a deliberate effort on our part to try to aim the site toward those levels of interaction, and we're continuing to do that with changes to the way our posts read, with the addition of the groups feature coming up in the near future. So we really want conversations to happen. We want people to connect. We want people to build communities, to find people that they want to follow, to learn from each other, to inspire each other. It's more about that, for me, in my mind, than it is about just say the thing you want to say because you can say it here and nowhere else. That's important. Yeah. But it's about, okay, you've said the thing you want to say. Now what? What do we do next? And that's what I want to foster here at Float.
Right. And not just online, but also in real life, which is why we're doing Float Fest.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to say something about the private company thing. If we can go back to that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
This idea that social media sites are private companies, and it dovetails in with the idea of the blank feed you got at Float. I feel like if a private company is taking public money, or is selling its information to the government or providing it to government agencies, the whole private company argument goes out the window, for one. So we are a privately owned company. We are a small business. We are owned by friends and family. We have a very small group of people that are interested in the company from a development and investment point of view at this point. And we are not beholden to anybody. We don't collect your data. We don't want your data. We don't collect it. We don't sell it. We have no interest in doing any of that. So when we say private, we can actually say that in truth. But the other side is that we're building this for the users, right? So when you go to Twitter or Facebook and you start a new account, you're going to get a lot of suggested follows. And there's a reason for that, because they want you to see a certain perspective. They're pushing an agenda. They have an objective. They're showing you, users, and they're advancing certain ideas and demoting other ideas in an unfair manner. We don't do any of that. We just want you to find the people you want to talk to. And so maybe there's certain people that we like specifically. I have my favorite topics, and Erin has hers, and other members of the team and users have theirs. And so we're going to recommend the things that we care about. But ultimately, it's about the users finding other users they want to talk to, not about us pushing an agenda or doing something behind the scenes and claiming that we're private. That's not the case here.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to watch social media develop from a time before any of it existed, because again, I am that old, to today, where at early on, the giants were like what Float is now, where you could go and talk about anything. It empowered the little guy to give you a view of what they were seeing, and
level the playing field is what they were saying.
Right? All of a sudden, I could report on something that would have never been covered unless I was working for a news agency, and I could prove it with video when they finally got video integrated, or with photographs early on, with interviews from people and quotes. And that was like giving power to the people.
Sure.
Yeah.
That was awesome. And watching it over, what is it, 15 years or so now that it's really been a tool people use, watching that go from empowering the people to furthering the corporate media narrative has been heartbreaking for me.
Yeah, I think it's partly the history of all technology. Every time a new technology, the printing press, video recording, every time something new's come out, it's like, oh, this will be great for the people. It'll be educational. It'll be, it'll let people communicate with each other more directly. And then over time, the money interests come in and the status quo interests come in, and then it becomes impossible for the regular people. Your slice of that bandwidth of access to that technology gets thinner and thinner and thinner, and directed into very specific uses that are harmless, while moneyed interests and the powers that be come in and sort of like use that as a megaphone, or a club in some cases, or both, to direct the story. And I don't want to be too conspiratorial, but that's just the history of all technology. I think it's just what happens. And so you really have to think, when you look at a site like Twitter, and or I don't want to pick on Twitter per se, but you look at any big tech site, you got to look at who owns it, who's the backing. There's new sites that are coming out recently, and you go, oh, it's freedom. And then you look a little deeper, and there's not quite as much freedom as you thought. And then you go, well, who owns this? Who's running it? Whose story are they telling, and why? And then that tells the thing. You got to look at the principles behind the site, not just, oh, it empowered me for a minute and then they took that power away. Well, actually, they just used you to build the system and get more eyes on there, so they could then, switch
and now they're silent.
Switch the purpose over.
Well, I think it's very important when you use any social platform to ask yourself, why am I investing my time in this?
Yeah.
Is it to connect with other people? That's important, because, getting people reliant on technology to connect and then cracking down on that it's almost an abuse tool.
Yeah.
Right?
You give somebody a tool and you take it away.
Your community, and now your community's gone, and that, whether that's virtual or in real life, that hurts just as much, because we are herd animals and we need people.
Yeah.
So ask yourself, why am I here? What am I getting from it? And if it's connecting with friends and finding new friends, and if community is a big piece for you, and it's not just to broadcast my message to the world so I can save the world, which is a totally different goal, right?
Yeah.
Then ask yourself, are the networks I'm investing in giving that to me?
Right.
Are they really giving that to me? Or am I falling prey to the quest for the next like or share?
Right.
Which those are different things. Is somebody sharing your stuff really community?
Yeah. For me, the community building aspect is very important. And, a lot of people feel like social media sites are an end to themselves. The site is the purpose, and then the people come and then they build the site. I feel like at Float, the site is serving the needs of the people. So I'm big personally about IRL meetups, about community building, and using the site as a tool to connect with those people, maybe in the first place, and to stay in touch with them, but to do things in the real world together. So, some of that is spreading the word about stuff. Some of that is talking about the things that are on your mind that you can't speak about anywhere else. I think that's part of a community, but larger than that, there's more to it than that.
Yes. Well, I think it's a whole way of bridging borders. Social media is, where formerly we were sort of geographically constrained. I mean, there was a time in my life where I actually wrote letters by hand and mailed them to people to keep in touch with them.
I still do that sometimes. Huh? I still do that sometimes.
I still do it too, because I'm old. No, I do it because I'm old fashioned.
You keep saying that word. I don't understand what that word means.
I know. But I had pen pals growing up. We didn't have email.
Yeah.
Right. And faxes were certainly not, like, I remember faxes and using. Does anybody even use a fax anymore? Just real estate agents, I guess, and lawyers. But that's how we stayed in touch. And the speed of communication was, it would take 2 weeks for my letter to get to my friends in Germany, and then they had to write one, and then it would take another 2 weeks to get back. Social networks bust that all apart, and it's beautiful because we can choose the topics we like. Like, if you're really into tiny houses, you will find a bunch of people sharing ideas of how they have optimized the space in their tiny house, for use and those sorts of things. Or if you're into homesteading, you'll find people who have exactly the same kind of livestock. And it doesn't matter anymore if they're in your neighborhood.
Right.
Yeah, and going back to your topic of decentralization, we envision in some near future where everybody's device will be their own node. And instead of like going to a site, the site is with you all the time. It's not a site anymore. It's just how you communicate with each other.
Mhm.
You'll be sharing direct information. You'll be sharing pictures and videos. You'll be sharing real-time chat from whatever device you have, and your data will be yours. It'll be encrypted end to end. It'll be stored securely. You might even be rewarded for storing information for other people or relaying data for other people. So, you know, we're trying to build the next generation of social media, which is way more on the social in terms of connecting people and having them be sort of directly engaging with each other rather than sort of just shouting out into the void and hoping to get something back.
Right.
And why would somebody want that decentralized approach, like on a very basic level?
I would say there's a couple of reasons. One is security of the information. When there's no trusted third party, everything I say to Aaron goes directly to Aaron and back again. We don't have to worry about, you know, somebody else hand carrying that envelope, steaming it open, reading the contents, resealing it, redacting part of it, or just losing it, you know, accidentally. So there's that part. So I want control over my data. There's also the idea of curation. You know, when we share data between each other, we don't have to worry about it being vanished off of a site after the fact or changed. Like when you buy books or music from the cloud and you store them in the cloud, you ever gone back and found out that the cover art changed or the description changed or a paragraph was revised? You know, I don't want that happening to my data that I'm sharing with my friends.
Right.
And I think, you know, the immediacy of having that with you all the time versus, you know, maybe not being able to be online all the time, especially as people become more mobile, they're homesteading, they're maybe outside of dense networks. So this idea of having decentralization that is that has an offline component where, you know, I can put my information in, I can put my chats, I can put my photos, I can send it to all the people I want to send it to. And then the next time my device is within range of a network, that the data transfer happens, and then I've got my update. So I don't have to go find internet to be part of the connection. I can stay connected in a way that doesn't depend on me being in a major city or near a cell tower. I think that's important too.
That's badass, is what that is. I want to ask that question because I didn't realize you were going to have an offline component. And one of my frustrations with social networks is the, you know, my internet went out issue that happens, you know.
We'll talk to anybody that's bought a game machine in the last 5 years and they're like, I can't play the game unless I'm connected to my internet. How's that a benefit to me? You know, it's almost like they're trying to get you to stay connected and stay stuck in that network, stuck in that web. And and you don't want to. I want to be able to like write when I want to write, like a letter, like you said, to time separate, to create when I'm creative, and then let that stuff go out, like schedule it out and have it just go out over the period of the day and have those interactions happen without me having to think I have to be connected, I have to be online. So
you're old too.
I am old too. What is that word you keep using? You know, that the offline component, it's there's a number of ways you can do decentralization. To me, that's part of it. It's about like it's about letting go of being connected all the time in one way and being connected in a different way.
Right.
Well, I know from a content creator standpoint, there's some other cool features on Float that you know some of my listeners who have podcasts should think about. One of which is you can now upload your podcast to Float, to your Float,
and
audio people can play it on Float.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you know what
that's
else
that's a feature that we launched with, and so it does take MP3 and MP4 files.
Yeah, that's very cool. That actually solves a problem for me because I need to put my audio files somewhere for my members to download.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized rather than having to throw them on Dropbox,
right,
which has its risks, I can put them on Float and link to those on my membership portal and I'm done.
Right. And if they go to your profile, they can look at your content by media type. So they can see all your posts, they can see videos, they can see audio. So if they just want to listen to your audio, they can just click that tab and it'll just be your audio pieces and they can listen to them one at a time.
Yeah, and that's a very cool feature. And I don't know how you guys do that without losing your butts from a server standpoint.
We give a lot.
Yeah, it hasn't been too hard of a problem yet. That's Alex's word, yet. But yeah, so we are in the middle of our rebuild for the next version out of beta. And so thinking about storage costs that's definitely been a very heavy conversation for us. And so, and what that looks like for our users in the future.
Well, and I know some of your future plans involve layering in a token, right? Or floating, as I've heard you call it. So that can help open that door because people can stake a token with their audio in theory. But I mean, I don't know how you're going to do that, but it just like, I don't know. I don't expect people to host my audio for free as a podcaster.
Right.
It's nice that you do, but at some point, if that were a membership edition or something, I also would not be hurt.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And frankly, the audio files aren't that big. They're really not that bad.
Yeah.
It's those
video
24-hour video streams. They eat up a lot of data, and then 5-hour videos on demand consume a fair amount of resources. We are looking at possibilities for premium features. Let's say that we had, and these numbers are still up in the air. We don't really know exactly what's going to look like yet, and a lot of this will depend on user feedback as well. But let's say that there was a default setting that gave you X amount of bandwidth, X amount of data storage, or whatever, however we slice it up, that makes sense. And it'd be a generous amount, close to what we're doing now. But if you really want to archive a lot of videos or a lot of audio files, or maybe you want to do an RSS feed, or you want to do something else like that, there might be opportunities to use some of those flow tokens that you've earned from user engagements to stake those back in, or to pay back in to buy plus tier services where you can get I don't know, 10x the storage space, or higher resolution videos if you're a gamer and you want to do 1080p 60 or something like that. We're looking at opportunities to continue to give away those basic services that get people started, but then specific people with specific needs might be interested in custom, unique services that are a little higher level, and maybe be willing to contribute a little something for them. That would be kind of a good deal for everybody, I think.
Right.
Well, the other cool thing as a content creator, and I haven't really used this, is I can put things behind a paywall right now.
Yeah,
you can.
I can say, you get all of my stream of consciousness, but these cooking videos are going to be back behind this wall.
Right.
Right. And unlike the other players, we don't take any percentage of that paywall. That goes 100% to you. So one of our basic criteria is that peer-to-peer payments, when people purchase content or ideas from each other, we're not taking that 30% cut that somebody else might be taking.
Right.
We want you to see the upside of that.
Like you're on YouTube and you're excited to support a creator, a normal person who sends a super chat through YouTube, they have no idea that YouTube takes 35% of each donation on the back end. And so, I just think that's really shady. So that was a huge reason why we wanted to make sure that the donation that someone sends, you get fully on Float.
So how does Float make money then?
It's a good question. Right now, we are currently using investment money to pay for server costs. We are having multiple different ways to generate revenue. So that includes we will be having ads once we launch Catamaran or very shortly after, and that should help. We also have our
let me get in there real quick on that one. And when she says ads, she doesn't mean ads from like outside parties like major corporations. We're talking about ads from users to users.
To users, right? Really connecting user to user.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt.
No,
that's okay.
We have multiple different ways that we can bring in money. Like Alex said, we have in-app purchases such as like the Float Plus premiums. So we definitely have a plan for revenue starting with Catamaran.
What about the NFTs I've heard about?
The NFT sale is going live before the end of January. And so that is going to be a way for basically people to pre-purchase Float Plus membership abilities. So ways to do boost multiplying for your posts, and a slew of other tiers. I can go ahead and pull them up here.
Yeah, there's a number of benefits that'll be associated with the NFTs. There'll also be token airdrops in the future with regard to those NFTs. So it's kind of a way for people who want to help support what we're doing now to sort of get involved early in that. But all those options will be available to every member on the site at some point in the near future as well. So there's nothing like Well, there might be a couple of things, a little bragging rights, having the NFT, and those could be resold down the road. So there are some benefits there, but eventually we're looking at a number of different revenue generating models to help continue to fund the site. We need more people. We need more, development bandwidth. We need more server capacity. We want to grow. It's difficult to do when you're a small company. So, we do want to offer people the opportunity. We want to create value so that people will recognize that value and be willing to pay for it.
Yeah, I think I'd like to say something right here, because there's the biggest objection I hear to Float, and I'm going to address it too, is, people get on and something doesn't work. We're talking about a site that's in beta, and I come from a software background. So if something doesn't work on something that's new, I don't worry about it. I might mention it, but I'm going to try to figure out, like, did I do something wrong? Or is it just like, that's the day they're upgrading? If you think about other social networks that are big and making more money than God right now, they also go down. Like Facebook went down for half a day in the last fall, and people lost their minds. And that's really sad. So Float sometimes has indigestion, but it's rare. I have to say this. It's very, very rare, especially if you access it through the browser rather than trying to use a phone app. So float.app, I just go there on my Brave browser on my phone. Done. It works most of the time. And the things here and there that don't work fix themselves. And it's because you guys are in the middle of changing from your beta system to alpha, right? At this point.
Yeah, well, or the release. Yeah.
The release.
I think when you look back on it, I think Google Mail was in beta for 6 years.
Yeah.
People forget that. And they also look at these other sites like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, and they see these sites that these people they had tremendous budgets, massive amounts of investment capital, some of it from sources you may not be aware of. And now they make just a boatload of money from ads and for selling data from users. And if you think about it, we're like, I was working on this metaphor the other day. We're like, a handmade sailboat right now.
Yeah.
Handcrafted in somebody's garage, and it's a lot of effort, and we have a small team. We don't have a lot of resources. It may take a while to finish it. You're building something in your garage. You're not working on it, 24 hours a day. You get in there when you can. You do what you can as fast as you can. And then you sail that boat into a marina, and you see like, a 150-foot yacht, and you're like, why doesn't my boat do that?
Yeah.
There's a difference between that handcraft. That sailboat will get bigger and better as we move forward.
But you definitely know what you're doing, because you also don't build bullshit, right?
Yeah.
What I see you doing is rolling out very carefully thought out features, one at a time. And then as they're rolling out, sticking to like, okay, we have to support this if it gets weird, right? And so what you have functions really well.
Well,
what you
I appreciate
don't have
that.
hasn't been launched yet. And yes, sometimes there's weirdness, like any software, basically.
Yeah, and I've been in software for probably 30 years now. I appreciate the patience it takes when you become dependent on an app and it doesn't do what you expect it to. I understand that. There's no way you can excuse that away, right? We know we use the site ourselves every day. I'm on there all day long, every day. Yep. So I know the pain of finding an error, and especially if you've typed in some data or uploaded a file and it's been lost. I get that. So I'm not trying to excuse that away, but I am asking for and being grateful for patience as we move forward. We are investing a lot of time and effort. We've got a great team we're pulling together. We've grown as a company. We've grown as a team. Our new version is going to be much better and a much more stable platform to grow on. So we're getting there. And I hope people will appreciate that while we're doing that, we're also maintaining the current site as we're building the new one. We are, dealing with all the political issues and the conflicts therein, and we're offering something a lot of sites aren't offering, which is freedom and personal responsibility. We're trusting you to be part of that process. So it's not simple, but we are doing the best we can.
Let's talk about that freedom and personal responsibility, because we were talking about that before we went live, and I don't think we've talked about that on this recording. So what do you mean by that? What's freedom and what's responsibility, and how does that relate to Float?
Aaron, we were talking about this in the pre-show. Do you want me to take that one?
Sure.
Okay, so when we talk about freedom, I'm thinking in terms of freedom of personal expression in that regard, in this context, right? So Float offers you the freedom to say what you want to say whatever floats your boat, right? The other side of freedom is the responsibility to decide for yourself what you want to hear and don't want to hear, right? So there's a lot of people that are like, I want to be free to say what I want to say, but I don't want to have to hear what somebody else is saying, right? So, you see that everywhere, and every site, everybody, we all kind of have that in us. That idea, that person, that concept, that image is bothersome to me. Well, the responsibility side of that freedom is that you decide for yourself, I don't want to see that. Don't have to go to somebody else and say, make that go away. That shouldn't exist. So if you want freedom to express yourself, you have to accept the idea that everybody has that freedom to express themselves. And then the power of being able to choose what you personally don't want to see and don't want to hear. That's the other side. That's the personal responsibility part.
And it is in real life. You go to a movie and you watch the movie in the theater. Let's just say you do that. And let's say it's a really violent movie, really graphic, and that turns your stomach. You know what you do?
You leave.
Stand up and you walk out.
Yeah.
And if it's misrepresented what's in the movie, then maybe you ask for your money back.
Yeah.
Hey, they said it was, this, and it turned out to be that. I feel misled. I want my, maybe they give you your money back. You go away. You write a review. Tell your friends, don't go see that movie. It was awful.
Yeah.
And then you move on. You don't go, try to find the producer and throw tomatoes at them or burn down the studio that made the movie. Just move on. It's going to be fine. You'll be all right.
So on social media, that means don't follow the person that says the things you don't want to read about.
So many people hate watch. And if that makes you happy to
hate watch,
to watch stuff that you hate so that you can get riled up about it, okay. But, remember that's your choice.
Well, we are all about building the life you choose on your terms here at Living Free in Tennessee. Usually that doesn't mean hate watching, though.
Let's hope not. But
let's hope not.
Usually you're not building anything when you hate watch, but if that's what you need to do, that's what you need to do.
We'll just take responsibility for it. That's all.
Yeah.
I eat lemons because they're sour and they hurt. Well, okay. Well, you bought the lemons, you peeled them, you stuck them in your mouth. Take responsibility for the outcome, right? Yeah. That's all we ask. That's the responsibility part of the freedom. You're free to do whatever you want. Just, those outcomes are yours and you own them.
So I'm really impressed with the sleek design of Float and the simplicity of getting to know how to use it. Like I can give my mom an account. She's older than I am. And I
hope so.
Yeah, she can figure out how to use it like that. Right. So that's been really well done. I understand you're adding some functionality. You talked about groups a little bit earlier. Like, what are the 2 or 3 things that you see that you're going to add to the social network to just make it a more robust experience?
I would probably say the 2 most anticipated features that do that are probably robust, like filtering options. So, for instance, you're not in the mood to see long form posts today. Like you don't want to read a brick of text, and that's fine. So you'll have the option to go ahead and just choose the kind of media that you'll be searching for. I love that feature. I'm very excited. Another way is through, I always say that a social media site is only as good as its discovery. And so our new discovery page is epic. You'll be able to go ahead and search through hashtags. You'll be able to follow hashtags. You'll be able to go ahead and create lists from this discovery page. It's just having these filtering tools is just going to make it such an easier user experience. I'm really looking forward to it.
You're ready for that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's because she's on Float every day, all day.
Yep.
Trying to keep up with everybody, right?
Yeah. We were just
You're going to be the one who doesn't want to see the big block of text, right, Aaron?
If it's interesting, big blocks of text, then absolutely, I'm game. But there's certain days where I'm just not, I'm not in the mood to read blog posts, and I'll want to listen to an audio podcast, or I'll want to watch a live stream, or there are just certain days, depending on what that is, I want to see different kinds of content, and so being able to kind of filter that out is it's going to be good. I think I'm excited.
Yep. Any other features you want to highlight, Alex?
Yeah, for me, it's groups, both the sort of default groups like, health and wellness, or like you said, tiny home living or homesteading, or whatever, and user created groups where people can have private membership groups, so they can have public groups, so they can, organize around their ideas or organize around content or whatever. I think that's powerful. A way for people to find each other and also to share and have longer conversations about topics. I think that's important. And the other part is the marketplace. I'm looking forward to creating a true free and fair agorist, if you will, marketplace online, where people can offer not only, their Etsy style crafts, products, or things like that, but also their ideas. If somebody's doing seminars or somebody has workshops that they want to do. So it's a marketplace of ideas and of products and services, and it's peer-to-peer. It's, you can barter, you can use, you'll be able to use flow tokens to engage in that marketplace. And it'll
Along with other
I think it's going to be super powerful when people start to realize, hey, not only can I find my network, I can find my people or the ideas, but I can also make some money. I can start to make a living. I can create content, or I can create, look and feel for the site. I can make badges, or I can make art or NFTs or T-shirts or video series, that people want, and market those as products. And there'll be the subscription model, of course, with that, but also individual sales and stuff like that too. To me, that's where you go from being social media to being something a lot more. I don't know what exactly you'd call that, but that's what we're wanting to do, is expand beyond the scope of social media.
I had to make my meta joke for the
yeah, I don't know, what's the opposite of meta?
I don't know, like Facebook has launched Second Life, as near as I can tell.
It's getting there.
Yeah.
The virtual experience is probably important. There's a lot of people that are separated in time and space from each other. I have a VR headset. I find it to be very interesting for certain uses. I don't want to live there.
Yeah.
But, I can see the value there in certain circumstances, for entertainment or for gatherings, or, for self-representation. I play D&D. I love the idea of role-playing. It's great. And I like the game. But, for me, the metaverse, if there is going to be such a thing, for me, it's got to serve in real life interactions. It's got to serve real relationships with real people. I'm really big, and maybe it's just because I'm old. I don't know. I got OLD.
There's that O word.
I called you older there.
People in person. See me.
Well, and then Aaron was getting to this earlier, so I'm not going to have sour grapes about the fact that I don't get to go to Float Fest because I wanted to go because it's
I
right.
know. I'm so sad about it. I was
next year.
Through our calendar, and again, I was just like, damn it, because that's
okay. I only pull 80 people because I have that maximum, and you guys throw this pretty big festival in Texas. Tell us about Float Fest.
Float Fest is just 5 or 6 days of just people coming and interacting in real life with each other, trading value, connecting on another level. And, just getting to spend time getting to know us as a team, and for us to get to know our users, and for our users to get to know each other. It was really important to both King and I to do something like that, connecting people on and offline. Ultimately, we built Float to build and connect communities. And so that's the best way that I know how. So it's happening April 29th to May 3rd in Gause, Texas, which is the smallest rinky-dink town that you could ever find anywhere. They're an unrestricted town 90 minutes away from Austin International on 100 acres of private property. So we're really excited about it. We did it this past year. It was great. We threw it together in 60 days, and we had 300 people show up. So we're excited to see, now that we can dedicate a little bit more time to getting everything thoroughly planned, exactly how many Float users will show up. So we're stoked.
Yeah, it sounds like a really fun event. And if you're listening to this and want to go to that, be prepared to camp. I think you can get a hotel room or get an Airbnb or bring an RV. Yeah. And by camp, I mean, it's not going to have like the camp bathrooms with the shower, right? It's rustic camping.
Yeah.
On
boondock style, dry camping. Yeah.
Yeah. So be ready for that. However, you need to be ready for that.
And there is a hotel, there's a hotel 10 minutes down the road.
Right.
For those who don't love camping. We've definitely had our fair share of people who stayed at the hotel last year or this past year. And I actually believe that they are installing showers, or at least
cool.
A few of them on the property that we may be able to use. So.
Well, enterprising people could bring an outdoor shower that is heated by the sun, and I don't know, charge some money for people to use it.
Absolutely. It is free to vend. So anything that you charge money for, you get to keep 100% of that money. So, and that'll help kind of offset the cost of the entrance fee, which is $100 per vehicle. How many people you fit in a vehicle, we don't care. So it's just $100 flat per vehicle. Yeah.
So that sounds fun. I'm hoping next year it won't be that same weekend in April, because we may be in conflict forever if it is. And I want to go. Like, one of these years, I just want to go. And I'm looking forward, because I think the biggest mistake we make as we follow our dreams and get passionate about things and then get online and get to know people is we don't take that last step. And that is to get to know people in person. When I talk about on my podcast, underground networking and all of those things, I get a lot of emails saying, how do I underground network? Well, step one is go to some of these events and get to know people in person, because that's how you develop real trust and real relationships over time. Not saying that you can't, through digital interactions, develop that trust, but it's going to be a lot easier when I can look you in your eye, and it's not just me looking at my camera, so it looks like I'm looking at you in your eye, and we can share stories around a campfire, or,
there's something powerful
or whatever you're doing, right?
Yeah, there's something powerful about people being in the same place, sharing the same air, being in the same, like, in proximity to each other. Something, I don't know, I don't want to get into the woo, but there's something about being near each other and taking that time and turning everything off and just coexisting in the same space that it's almost impossible to replicate any other way. So it's super important that we do this, and that's why it's so important for us. Last year when we threw Float Fest, it was right at the end of the mask mandates in Texas. People hadn't been out in public, they hadn't touched other human beings, they hadn't seen anybody without a mask on in almost a year. So it was really sort of like a really great moment. And now here we are a year later, and we're still facing a lot of the same restrictions, and it's our theme for the year. It's time to be free.
We were always free.
Yep. Well, it's time to be free.
Yeah. And honestly, there's so much going on in the world that I feel like we really need to have conversations about, and those conversations are probably best served in person. And so just because you can't have those solutionary conversations online anymore, anywhere besides Float, it seems like, and other alternative social medias. I think they are scared of people, meeting in person and talking about, well, how do we opt out? What do we do? Like, how do I stop going to the supermarket? How can I support my local farmer? How can I help another person and not a corporation?
Well, if you look,
I want to interrupt. I got a show to prepare for
okay.
in an hour. So Thank you for having me on. I'm going to dip out, let you guys wrap it up.
Okay, I'm about to wrap anyway. So bye. Thanks for being on, Alex.
See you guys later. Take it easy.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah,
bye.
If you look at other cultural shifts throughout history, it's interesting that this kind of shift where it's just more top-down control rather than freedom oriented. The first thing they try to do is keep people from being with each other.
Yeah.
Because the biggest threat is when we do talk, and when we talk openly. So I really think, and I'm glad that you guys do Float Fest, because I think the more events like this we have, the better off we all are, and the better those strong relationships are developed.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm meeting with people like that. There's no veil of bullshit, and so I think that's what I appreciate the most about those kind of in-person events is I can just go somewhere and knowing that I can turn around any which way and just have a real conversation with people. That's all I could ever want, it's just talking to someone and having to it's like a minefield. Like you don't know, like when you leave your house and you get in a conversation with someone, it's like, you don't know what word is going to set someone off and it's just all going to explode. And so, you know, at least at FlowFest, I know that I can talk about anything. And if they disagree with me, then I can handle the discourse, and that's totally fine. And,
yeah, it's like the old days when we talked to each other and debated things.
Yes. Yeah. Like such a hard concept here now, but, you know, a couple 10, 15, 20 years ago, I feel like it was much easier to have conversations.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because I was raised in the time where critical thinking was encouraged in school, like in public school, right? And part of how you learned something is you debated it, and they would assign you whatever opinion they wanted to. And what that helped develop is the ability to ask questions from the other side of what you're assuming on your gut level is right. That doesn't mean I don't get tricked by myself all the time, because I do.
Right.
I have, you know, confirmation bias just like anybody else. But we've walked away from that as a society and gotten into this. You have to be really careful not to offend anybody. I'm done with people like that. I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, I'm ready to just kind of move past all of the self-censoring and just kind of dive in headfirst to talking about real shit with real people.
Yeah, and Float does that. You can just go there and say what you want. And if somebody doesn't agree, they may tell you they don't agree, or they may stop following you. So who cares?
Yeah.
Right?
You know, you can't please everyone. You can't make everybody happy. And so all you can do is just kind of stick to your principles and hope that they can return. So yeah.
Well, Erin, I wanted to thank you for making time to be on today. Any last, like, how people should follow you, get involved? Any last things you want to say to my listeners before we sign off?
I just hope that you guys join us at float.app or joinfloat.com. And for more information on FloatFest, you can go to flotefest.com. And if you want more information on Float Token and Float NFT sale, you can go to floattoken.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on the show today and making time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Nicole. Hope you have a great day.